Hello art students. Today I bring you a video showing you how to draw and shade some basic cube forms. I'll specifically show you how to draw the cube forms and apply smooth shading to one of them. You'll learn about what a light source is, and you'll learn about shadows and where to put them, and you'll learn about how the art elements relate to what we do in this drawing. In the next couple of videos, we'll apply different techniques to the other two cubes. Before we begin, I want to mention one other reason why we're doing this. When you have a better understanding of how to draw basic shapes and basic forms, you can apply this knowledge of drawing and shading basic forms in order to be more successful with other things that you draw. Just imagine all of the subjects you could turn this cube into. A building, a box, a present, a table, a camera, a car. The list goes on and on. When you can do a better job drawing basic forms, you'll be able to do a better job drawing other things. Alright, let's get started. Please follow along and draw with me on your own sheet of paper. You'll need a pencil and a ruler as well, and if you don't have a ruler, you can simply just find any straight flat object around the house and use that. We're going to make a total of 3 cube forms, and in order to do that we need to use line to create 3 square shapes. These squares should be fairly small on your paper so that you have room around them to do other work. So they need to be spread out from each other and kind of small, okay? I'm probably not going to make the squares any thicker than the width of my ruler here, so that gives you kind of an idea. Okay, I have my 3 small squares kind of lined up in the middle of the paper. I have some space between them. The opposite sides are parallel with each other, and I use the ruler sides to do that. The next step is to turn these shapes that were made with outlines into 3-dimensional forms by adding more lines and shapes. Okay? So I'm going to walk you through how I do it with the first one, and then I'm going to speed it up to do it with the other ones, okay? So I turned my paper so that these points are kind of pointing straight up and pointing right down at me. And the reason I'm doing that is because it kind of helps me see the direction of the lines that I'm going to put. I'm going to have a line that kind of comes straight out of that corner, straight up. If you need to, you should use your ruler. Okay, it just kind of comes straight out. And then from these 2 corners, they need to be parallel with that one. They can't be kind of tilted like that or tilted like that, which honestly I see that quite a bit. So I want you to try to make these 2 lines that you put completely parallel with this one. They need to run in the exact same direction. So this one's coming straight out of that corner, but this one is not coming straight out of the corner like that. It's coming up like this, okay? If I need a little bit of help to try to decide if something is parallel or not, I can use my ruler, line it up with my first line, and then slide it. And I can say that that's pretty close to parallel now. So again, I just want to make sure that these 3 lines are actually running in the same direction, okay? Now, I might have made these lines too long or too short. I can always erase parts of them or extend them out a little bit longer, so that part doesn't really matter. I'm not going to make the back sides by just putting a line between the end and the other end, because that wouldn't be correct. I'm going to find the back edge where I think it should be, you know, based on how thick I think the cube should be, and there's a little bit of guessing there. But then, wherever you decide it should be, Then a line is going to come straight down just like this one comes straight down. It's going to be parallel with this one. So again, if you need to, use your ruler, line it up with that first line, and then slide it over. Then make your line go between those two. And then erase the extra. Or if you didn't have enough line, add a little bit of extra line so that those two lines meet. Now, since I put that one there, basically this line copies this line, and then I'm going to have a line that copies this line. So you see how these two lines go and then meet at a corner? Same needs to happen for the back edge lines. So again, this line's going to be parallel. And there I have my cube, okay? I'm going to do the same thing with these other two, but I'm going to speed up the video a little bit. Little trick, since I put all three of these boxes in a line together, I'm just going to use this line as my guide for the top of the other two. So I lined it up with that one, and now I can look and see how that looks, if that's pretty much the same as this. Okay, so there are the three cubes. I want you to notice too that we've used three of the art elements pretty much to make these three cubes, this simple drawing. We've used lines to create shapes, and we've combined shapes together to make simple forms. We're going to add more to this now to make them even more three-dimensional, and we're going to add value through shading. In order to do the shading for these cubes, we need to think about where the light is coming from. And so that's called the light source, by the way. And we're going to say that the light source, let's say it's the sun, then it's going to be way, way up there somewhere from some direction and at some angle, but it's going to be way, way up there. We can kind of help ourselves out by just kind of like indicating what direction we think that's from, but like it's going to be way, 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 way up there. Okay, so way, way, way up there. I'm not going to draw that circle because that makes it feel like the sun is super close. It's going to be way up there. It's coming down from these angles, okay, from this angle. And it's so far up there, okay? So that's the light source. It's coming from way back there, and it's coming down at that angle. So what we do is we need to indicate a cast shadow on these cubes. And we're going to use this angle to help us do that. And so that's the direction. And we're going to have from each one of these corners, we're going to have a light line come straight off of them that kind of matches that angle there. From this corner and this corner, they're all kind of coming off of that, like that, okay? Next, we need to think about how far up, you know, the sun is, okay? And we just need to, it's coming from this direction, way out here, way out here. That's where the sun is, somewhere way out here, and it's coming this angle, but it's way up there, and there's an angle that we need to find that goes past each one of these top corners. So just need to think about how it's coming past. Now this is kind of, we're thinking about it as a different angle now. So we choose an angle, and we're going to erase some of these lines. And these lines come straight off of these corners, and they're all matching each other. Okay. Then you see where these met? That's your points that you need to pay attention to. So you go here and here. And then you end up erasing a lot of the lines you just drew. So that light outline is going to be the cast shadow for that cube. I'm going to do the same thing here again, and I'm going to walk you through it one more time because that's a little bit confusing. But basically you need to think of a direction that the light is coming from, and then you need to think of an upwards angle too. So direction, like this. So the sun is somewhere over here. So each one of these corners, and then there's an upwards like angle too that is coming down, and so that's going to hit these corners, and that comes straight down until those two meet. Okay, so I'm muddying up my drawing quite a bit here, but what I really need to pay attention to is these points. And I want to keep this line and this line. These are the outlines of the shadow. And then I'm going to erase everything else. For this third one, I'm going to try to do it with less lines involved, okay? So that there's not as much erasing. Okay, now I'm going to shade this cast shadow, and I don't really want the cast shadow to have a strong outline. So I'm going to soften that outline by erasing it until I can just barely see it. And you might not be able to see it hardly at all on the screen. But now, right where it's close to the cube, I'm going to start shading that in. Not pressing super hard. So right up against where that cube is. And I'm just going to fill in that cast shadow shape, but when it's close to the edges, I'm just going to be kind of blurry with it. I'm not going to try super hard to have a crisp outline, because it's not really going to have a super crisp outline. It's going to be a little bit blurry. Okay, so I've shaded that in, and I tend to make it a little bit darker right along the edges of the cube itself. You know, the nooks and crannies and corners of things tend to get a little bit less light than other spots. So even though this is in shadow, this is even more in shadow. The light's just not reaching that spot as much. Okay? I'm going to shade this as well, and because we know basically the direction and the angle of the light source, where the light is coming from, we can shade these according to that, making some darker and some lighter. But I don't really want to lose this edge. Because the light source is coming from over here somewhere, I'm going to say that the top of the cube is lightest. This face of the cube is a little bit darker, and this face of the cube is generally going to be the darkest. Okay, so light, medium, dark-ish, okay? So first I'm going to do the dark side, but I might not do it as dark as I think it will end up being until I shade some of the other sides as well, because I kind of like to see them develop together. Just compare them and make sure they look good together. Okay, so notice too how this edge I've made a bit darker, and it's gotten lighter as I went this way. I just feel like, you know, this is the edge corner that's the furthest away from the light. And so other places are going to catch light from other things, like light reflecting off of objects and getting other surfaces. So I'm not going to make it just a solid dark shade. I'm going to have a little bit of dark to light happening in it. Also makes it a little bit more interesting to look at that way. This one is generally going to be in between the light and the dark, so I don't want to make it quite as dark as what I just did. When I'm shading this, I'm trying to be just really soft with my pencil. I'm not pressing hard. I'm moving my pencil in multiple directions to try to eliminate lines. I don't want there to be hard streaks running through it. So it requires a few layers of going back and forth in different directions and trying to fill in all those gaps, and maybe even moving your pencil in a little bit of a circular motion can kind of help. And then the top, I'm still going to shade it, but it's just going to be extremely light. When I do that, I compare with what I've done with other sides of the cube, and I might need to darken these ones up. Okay, so that might be good for that demonstration of this cube. In the next video, I'll show you what I would like you to do with this cube. But before I end this video, let's just review a little bit about how I've used some of the art elements. I've used line to create different shapes. I've used shapes together to create a basic 3D form, which is my cube. And I've used value to enhance that form. So I think that's 4 art elements so far. Line, shape, form, value. And actually, you know what? There's a little bit of space here as well, now that I think about it, because this 3D form is occupying some kind of space. We see it as sitting on a surface, and so this 3D form is occupying 3-dimensional space. We see distance into the artwork. We see areas around the form, so that's space. Okay, so I will see you again when I do a new video telling you what I'd like you to do with this cube. So wait for that.